has half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Half a day. Konnichiwa.
Patois.
Ciao. Enter for a chance to win the 76 Circle K World Cuisine Giveaway. Be one of 3 lucky winners to win a passport of free food from around the world at over 15 different local restaurants. Just stop by any 76 Circle K, purchase $35 or more in fuel to get an entry form. Drive by today and taste the world with 76 Circle K's World Cuisine Giveaway. Visit 76CircleKGuam.com for more details. Some conditions apply. Circle K, take it easy.
Will resume in the morning in the Kyle Rittenhouse murder trial.
Of deliberations, the jury has still not reached a decision, but we now know that when they do, one cable news network will not be in the courtroom to hear it. Today, Judge Bruce Schroeder banned MSNBC from the courtroom for the rest of the trial. Last night, Kenosha police detained a freelance producer for MSNBC who they believe was following the jury's bus to take pictures of them. According to the judge, when officers pulled the producer over, he told them he had been instructed by his supervisor in New York to follow the bus. With blacked out windows, it's been carrying the jury to and from the courthouse every day of the trial. That case is now under investigation.
Fox's Garrett Tenney in Kenosha. The defense has rested in the trial of 3 Georgia men charged with the murder of jogger Ahmed Arbery last summer. The prosecutor on cross-examination trying to poke holes in gunman Travis McMichael's self-defense claims.
Yeah, he did not threaten me verbally, no ma'am.
All right. Didn't brandish any weapons?
No ma'am.
Didn't pull out any guns?
No ma'am.
Didn't pull out any knife?
No ma'am.
Closing arguments will begin Monday. Oklahoma's Governor Kevin Stitt sparing the life of convicted killer Julius Jones. He'd been scheduled for execution Thursday. A suspected serial killer in Missouri facing new charges.
26-year-old Perez Reed is already charged with 4 deaths in the St. Louis area. Police now say he was behind the killing of 2 others at an apartment complex in Kansas City, Kansas. Surveillance video reportedly shows Reed entering the downtown complex in late October, just ahead of the double murders at 2 separate apartments. The suspected serial killer was arrested on November 5th after investigators spotted him getting off an Amtrak train and attempting to board a bus. He's being held in St. Louis on $2 million bond.
Fox's Tom Graham. And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Leah Dunca from Security Title here with a little information about trusts. A trust is a legal entity capable of owning property. It can protect property from issues such as lawsuits or divorce and can be used to distribute property and avoid probate. Many trusts start as revocable but become irrevocable when the initial trustees die. Work with your estate planning attorney to see if a trust is a good fit for your family property. Call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
When's the last time you looked at your homeowner's insurance?
An easily overlooked part of covering our home is what's inside of it. Over time, we buy things we don't want to lose, but don't update our contents coverage. The smart thing to do is get the answers and level up our insurance to make sure we're totally protected.
That's the Insurance Extra Point. Get out there and make something good happen today by calling Guahan Insurance Services at 475-1162 or visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center in Tamuning.
Guam Auto Spot has the best selection in Buick, GMC, Mitsubishi, and used cars like the 2021 Mitsubishi Mirage starting at $127 per paycheck, 0 down. Call 671-478-AUTO to take a test drive or get pre-approved online at GuamAutospot.com.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So every day of the week I say that. It's the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution. I keep saying it every day. I'll keep saying it every day. I'll say it tomorrow and Sunday, even though Jose and I will be in limbo. We'll be in a state of suspended animation. We'll still be alive, but we really won't be sure that we are, because we'll be kept away from doing what we really, really are cut out to do. Tall tales, right, Jose?
That is very true, Bob.
Yeah. And, of course, I think all of our tailgaters recognize that. And it's good when others recognize the greatness of Tall Tales, the greatness of the Point, the greatness of this radio station, the greatness of the talented people who bring you great radio every day. I'm looking here at page 33 of a supplement that appeared in today's Daily News. It's Pika's Best of Guam, and they picked the best of, I think they picked the best of 672 different categories of businesses or undertakings, etc. And the best radio station is, drum roll, Jose, The Point. Yeah. And that's, of course, as it should be. The Point, the best radio station on the island. I'd like to tell you that I did it all by myself, but I couldn't. As I said in the first promo I did after I brought Tall Tales to The Point, I said, the end of the commercial was, Ray says, set your dial to 93.3 and you needn't touch it again all day. Prophetic.
Very, very much so.
Great programming all day long, all night long, etc. And it's been recognized by the by the territorial radio listening audience here in Guam. So I'm very grateful.
There were no panel of voters. There was no board of directors. There was no committee. It was you, the listeners, who voted us in.
Yeah, and fortunately for us, Tina's nephew did not have a radio station. Okay, so, yeah, I think we probably celebrate all weekend long, Jose.
Okay, I will.
Yeah, it'll take a little bit of the edge off and no Tall Tales.
We don't come in till 4 o'clock anyways on Monday.
That's right. Okay, so let's turn to Zemi Ikutni. My bilingual backwards play on words where I pick on the two daily newspapers here on the island. I read their editorials. I fly-spec them for grammatical and English usage errors, theoretical shortfalls, etc. And when I'm done, if one is meritorious, it will receive the coveted Blue Star. And as I mentioned before, careers have been made and broken on the award of that Blue Star. It's one hefty responsibility, but I think I can handle it. Here's what the Daily News said today. With tourism being Guam's primary economic driver, it's key for the local government to provide needed support as we try to rebuild the visitor industry. GVB President Carl Gutierrez said some flights from Korea to Guam during the next 6 weeks are about 70% booked. 6 airlines from Korea have resumed or are expected to resume their Guam flights. We're seeing an emerging light at the end of the tunnel in terms of GVB horizons. GVB Vice President Jerry Paris, a very courteous fellow, has said, he added, Guam may see as many as 198,000 total visitors this fiscal year. We're celebrating a couple of 100,000 visitor arrivals in a year when we used to go way over a million. Tough.
I can name every one of those visitors.
We're looking at basically hitting the upper edge of our initial forecast, probably a little better than that, Paris said. The Guam Visitors Bureau said free Wuhan virus testing for departing tourists is a key incentive to bring visitors to Guam because many tourists need a negative Wuhan virus test result before leaving Guam to avoid tough quarantine requirements when they get home. GVB has a budget of $1 million to pay for visitor PCR tests. It spends about $175 per test. Based on November and December visitor bookings, the budget will run out in December, GVB said. GBV officials met with the administration officials Monday asking for more money for testing. More money. We hardly have enough money to send a couple guys to Madrid. How can we possibly pay for these tests? We can just barely give 16 people at the hospital above-step recruitment. The agency also wants public health to supplement testing capacity for tourists. The PCR testing really gives us a significant competitive incentive that we need to sustain beyond December, Paris said. Paris said Guam needs to tailor its tourism business model to what's happening in South Korea and Japan, the island's primary visitor markets. The one common denominator seems to be PCR testing. So here's what they're talking about. You know, if you wanted to go, when I left for Honolulu here last month, in order for me to board the aircraft in Guam, I had to be able to show I could debark in Honolulu. Honolulu required that you have a PCR test within the last 72 hours before arriving in Honolulu. So, you know, it's a hang-up. It's hard. Just the logistics of it aren't easy. It costs money, etc. So I could see this could be a real strong incentive for Japan and Korea where you have to have that PCR test to come back home. If giving tourists free Wuhan virus tests before they depart Guam will help the tourist industry, the government of Guam needs to ensure that happens. Any sensible measure that gives the island a leg up on our competition and helps rebuild the visitor industry is smart. Until there is true, robust economic diversity, we need tourism to power our economy and provide jobs. Local government support is crucial to make that happen. I really doubt that we'll ever see true, robust economic diversity here on the island. Okay, that's the Post. That's the Daily News. Now we've got the Post. And the headline in the Post really tells the story. Public scores win in the case against elected CCU commissioners who kept pay raise meetings secret. So we all won. It's encouraging to see the Attorney General, Levin Camacho, use his authority to enforce the law banning secret meetings by government entities instead of getting involved in hospital litigation in New Jersey. Yeah, very good, Jose. The AG sued the elected members of the Consolidated Commission on Utilities in February after they held closed-door meeting in 2015 and decided on a $28,000 raise for the Waterworks Authority interim general manager. CCU Chair Joseph Duenas, Commissioners Francis Santos and Simon Sanchez, and then Commissioners George Bamba and Pedro Guerrero were named defendants in the lawsuit. On Wednesday, the AG's office announced the defendants must pay $10,049 under terms of a settlement. Although the CCU members subsequently voted on and approved the raise in an open meeting in an attempt to fix the issue, that did not stop the AG's office from suing the commissioners. The AG's office stated that the open government law clearly and explicitly prohibits discussion of salaries, salary levers, salary adjustments in meetings behind closed doors away from the public view. Our actions will be guided by the laws and facts in this case, and the law is clear and unambiguous. Raises must be discussed and decided in public. Now, you heard my gloss yesterday on what constitutes discussion of raises. I don't see how you can say you're discussing the raises of employees that you are able to provide raises to without an evaluation. That the evaluation of the employee has got to be part and parcel of the salary increment, as your salary increase undertaking. Otherwise, what would be the basis for the salary increase? Camacho said his office will use its authority again when government officials perform similar actions in secrecy and in violation of the law on meetings being open to the public. This was also the first lawsuit in nearly a decade brought by the AG's office to enforce the Proper Government Spending Act, the AG's office stated. The information that formed the basis of the lawsuit was discovered through the partnership between the AG's office and the public auditor to tackle the misuse of government funds and promote the rule of law, Camacho's office stated. The AG's office and the OPA have more work ahead of them to ensure government officials' discussions are not only accessible to the public, but to ensure records of the discussions are properly maintained, especially if the decisions have great impact on the public. The case seems clear-cut. The work ahead could also benefit from a fine-tuned law sponsored by astute senators to address other lingering issues on the issue of open and transparent government meetings. Certain government agencies need to improve on providing timely access to recorded government meetings and keeping proper records of the meetings with the goal of serving the public rather than just going through the motions for compliance. Some government board meetings have been recorded but are barely audible. In some meetings that reporters have covered or tried to access via recordings, officials have talked in barely audible voices that are within earshot of public officials at the table, but not necessarily within hearing distance of members of the public. In some meetings, officials have barely discussed the issues at length. The language they use and the brevity of some meetings leave questions as to whether the outcomes have been predetermined before the actual open government meetings. Taking violators to court is one win for the public, but enforcement and vigilance are needed so that the laws are followed and the interest of the public is better served. Thank you, AG and Public Auditor. Keep the light of transparency from dimming. Now, I'm going to give the blue star to the Post, but I'm going to be critical of the Post also. Okay, Post, congratulations. You got the blue star. It looks like you're finally getting back in the groove here. However, read your own editorial. And when these things happened, you have to shine the light on them. When board members are mumbling and your reporter can't hear it, that is a newsworthy event. Put it in your paper.
Don't wait for the AG or the auditor to say something.
You know, and I've heard this before, well, somebody's got to sue. If you sue, you've lost. And I can tell you from personal experience what suing is like. I sued Michael Bora because he violated the open government law. He played the personnel matters game. I had to pony up 10 grand, a little more than 10 grand in advance for court costs and attorney's fees. Yeah. Money up front. And it took for almost a year for the case to be resolved. Now, I won. And because I won, the Department of Land Management had to reimburse my attorney's fees and costs. So I got my money back. And Michael Bora had to pay $1,000 out of his own pocket. So it's a good result. But how many people get angry enough when something like this happens who happen to have 10 grand that they can put forth for something like this? Not very many. You have a hard time finding people getting angry enough even ones that work at the newspaper. So it's up to the Fourth Estate. It's up to you guys, Guam Daily Post, to bring about the enforcement. And when something comes along, like the things you mentioned in your editorial, that is news. I can see the headline now.
I would like to see a list of these meetings where they weren't able to get clear language, or even where they said something seems like it was predetermined.
Yeah, and when the recordings are not properly posted, that's news. So I can imagine the headline right now. Board X members mumble at meeting. Our reporter, Schmucka Huckowitz, had a difficult time writing this story because he couldn't hear the members speak. They were muffled. He didn't speak. That's the story. That might be the most important thing that happens at that meeting.
They need to be a little aggressive. Remember the debacle at Adelup where the door was closed on them and they went, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. They were happy that when the door closed, it didn't slam on their fingers. And of course, they couldn't slam on their fingers because they had their hands in their pockets. Yeah, come on, Post. Get more aggressive here. All right, that's number, for the Post, that's number 254. 255. A little early for a break, isn't it, Jose?
In about 7 minutes.
Yeah. Okay, so we go to the card. And this is what I've got on today's card. I start out with the left versus Rittenhouse. Rittenhouse jury is still impaneled, still deliberating. We don't have a verdict yet. It could be literally any minute. I've got Moylan and the burn. Moylan gets the burn. Egarolo and Dahilic versus ratepayers. Turley versus Pencilneck. And a repeat of repeat versus repeat. And I can see somebody in the green room here trying to get in. Before I go to the first item on the card, it's Paul from Boston. He wants to talk about tourism. Too expensive to travel to Guam. Yeah, it is expensive to travel to Guam, Paul, if you start out in Boston. But let me tell you something. It's expensive to travel to Boston if you start out in Guam.
Correct, sir.
There's a certain symmetry there, isn't there?
There certainly is. And I just want to wish you the best. I haven't spoken to you and Jose in a long time. I hope you guys are doing well.
Yeah, we've been lucky up until now. Go ahead, Paul.
Until I call. Thanks a lot. Oh, man, I get it. No, I actually did the research. I wanted to come, and Jose actually said I could sleep on his couch. And I was $10,000 in the hole.
Wow.
Before I even landed in Guam. So it is hard. I actually did the math on it, and I wanted to come and hang out with you guys, but it's expensive.
It is.
It's really hard just to get there, and I understand that there's COVID and things like that going on, but I wanted to do it. I had a week and a half off, and I priced it out, and it was quite expensive. Like $10,000 would have landed me in Guam.
Well, a lot depends on how good you are at arranging your travel. If you wait until 2 days before you want to leave and buy your ticket, you're going to pay a lot more for the ticket than if you buy 2 months. Than if you buy 2 months in advance. And the smart buyer would buy 2 months in advance and then keep checking the price, because sometimes the price goes down.
I kept checking the prices, and then Jose was going to let me sleep on his couch, and I'm fine with that. I don't need much, but just for a normal one person to get from the States to Guam right now is easily $6,000. So it's hard, Bob. Just to visit, and I know a lot of people on the island, their businesses rely on tourism, but it's hard for people to come visit. And I would love to see. I to come visit.
Yeah, well, you know, most of our visitors come from Japan and Korea, so the airfares are relatively inexpensive from Japan and Korea because they're closer and there's a lot more traffic.
Yeah, I mean, okay. So I unfortunately don't live there. I live in Boston.
Yeah.
But for me, it's gonna be harder to get there, I guess. And I would love to come visit you guys and see
sleep
what's
on my
going
couch.
Yeah, no, I mean, hey, it's the only way I can afford it, Jose. I mean, I'm a good cook. I'll hang out.
Well, we're kind of hurting here on Guam, so I've upped the rates on my couch. It went from free to $1,000 a night.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, great. Now, Bob, I'll sleep on your couch, Bob.
Yeah, it's already booked, Jose.
Paul.
Man. Yeah. Well,
anyway,
the saving grace here.
Guys,
the saving grace here.
Before you cut me off, please have a blessed holiday and have the best wishes of everything going into this new year.
Thank you, Paul. So the thing that the saving grace that you Bostonians have is that you can visit Guam with the theater of the radio. Just listen to tall tales, let your imagination run wild, and you'll be here. That's what I do, Bob. That's a good way to do it, Paul. Thanks for calling. Paul from Boston. Okay, Paul from Boston takes us up to the first break. Good going, Paul.
Howdy, Chili's is serving y'all some Texas-sized family meal, because everything's bigger in Texas. Enjoy full racks of Chili's world-famous baby back ribs, margarita chicken, savory shrimp, beef fajita, smoked jalapeno sausages, mashed potatoes, and corn on the cob. Man, this meal's bigger than Dallas, but it ain't breaking the bank. Chili's has Texas-sized family meals for just $45 to feed your crew of 3 to 6 folks. For your youngins, just add $5 for a kid's meal. Chili's, more life and bigger meals happen here.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY. And now back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the one radio show politicians don't want you to listen to. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Once upon a time, I used to repeat that phone number quite often, but I've kind of slipped up on that. So the phone number is 888-TALK, 888-8255, 888-TALK. Probably 2 or 3 times a day, I am reminded of my forgetfulness because I hear that voice saying, you have to dial 671. Yeah. And I suppose if I live long enough, I'll finally get in the habit, but...
I think some people do it just to hear her voice.
Probably. It's possible. Yeah, so 888-8255, 671-888-8255. You will find yourself talking to one of the top-notch producers in radio here on Guam, one of the top 2 producers in radio here in Guam. And he will... That's the other one. He will interrogate you briefly and put you on hold, send you to the green room, and you will more than likely have a chance to have your voice broadcast to our entire prize-winning international radio listening audience. 671-888-8255. Okay, so here's what we got on the card for today. We've got the left versus Rittenhouse. I've got Moylan and the Burn, Egarulo and Helig versus Ratepayers, Turley versus Pencilneck, and a repeat on Repeat versus Repeat. Starting out with the left versus Rittenhouse. Now, if you pay attention to criminal law, you know that the style of a criminal case, the caption of a criminal case is usually something like the people versus Smith, Guam versus Smith, people of Guam versus Smith, United States versus Johnson, something like that. The entity bringing the case is the state or the U.S. government. It's the people. And the defendant is just an individual. That's the style of most cases. Now, we have a case that's going on in Kenosha that I suspect that every tailgater's familiar with. It's actually styled Wisconsin versus Rittenhouse. However, it's taken on a different nomenclature because apparently an awful lot of people in the country are not happy with a district attorney from Kenosha County prosecuting a case. They think that the media cartel also has to prosecute the case. And maybe you could kind of fill in some of the blanks on that one, Jose, for me.
Yeah, it's been an interesting event to be an observer. You know, a lot of what's going on right now currently as far as riots and these court cases seem to have initiated from the George Floyd case, where we had a perpetrator, somebody who was taken into custody by the cops, and he ended up dying. And there was a huge uproar over, was it due to this white privilege cops versus blacks, the narrative that's going on in the media right now. And then there was video. And so people saw what was happening on video, and it went all over social media, and there was a lot of people already rendering their verdicts because of that video. Here we had something similar in the sense that there was here in Kenosha where there was cops versus a perpetrator who was also African American. There was no video, but because of those two things that we talked about earlier about generalized justice, those two factors were in play, that all of a sudden we had a verdict in the public eye already. Riots ensued in Kenosha because of the death of who was his name, Joshua Blake or something like that?
Jacob Blake.
Jacob Blake.
Yeah.
And so similar things that were going on all over the United States with the George Floyd case was happening in Kenosha. And again, the narrative of the left was infiltrated the city of Kenosha, where when the rioters came, the police backed away because I guess they didn't want any more bad press. You know, they didn't want any cops are bad and this is a righteous protest. And then we saw what happened with Rittenhouse. He was there to protect actually to fill in a vacuum, right? Because the police were gone. He was there to protect a building. And the narrative was that he was attacked and chased, and then he shot the person who was attacking him, and then two more people came after him, and he shot and killed one of those person who attacked him and injured the second person. Right away, the left somewhat had moved the narrative towards this young person, Rittenhouse, as being guilty. They've already had the rumor that he was a white supremacist, and that's why he was there, and he was there to just to create violence against the protesters there. But when the video came out, people saw what was going on, and people could see that could be a case for self-defense. So the narrative changed a little bit too. And so here we have the left kind of guiding the way that the tone of everything that's going on, not really according to the facts of the case, not really according to even justice, because we haven't even got to a court case yet. But here they have a person who kind of fits the bill of the boogeyman, a young kid from Midwestern state who has a firearm, because remember the left abhors the Second Amendment, the right to keep and bear arms. And he shoots and kills two people, shoots at three people and kills two of them. And so and it's during a Black Lives Matter protest. So it's a perfect scenario for them to manipulate the narrative the way they want it to be. So here we have the narrative as written down in this article, coming out of the New Neo. Is that the name of the website? And this person is writing about this narrative of the left that's in play now. And if I'm just going to read down a couple of points here that he wrote down here. According to the left, Rittenhouse, the person, is just a vehicle for delivering the message, and their message, which goes like this. Number one, rioters in causes that the left deem righteous are allowed to destroy cities, and ordinary citizens must lay low, take it, and they may not defend property or even take their lives. And if you've seen some of the riots from Portland where buildings are burning and businesses are being ransacked and looted, it's almost as if it's a normal thing to happen, and that's justice.
Night after night. Yeah.
And the mainstream media is actually keeps blaming the situation and apologizing for the looters, being apologists for the looters.
Mm-hmm. Apologeticists.
Apologeticists. There you go.
Yeah.
The second thing is, quoting from the article, the most that these citizens can do if they're attacked is to take the beating and hope not to be killed, throwing themselves on the tender mercies of the mob, screaming for their destruction. And that's actually kind of what the attorney said.
That's what the
prosecutor
yeah,
said.
The DA and sometimes you have to take a beating.
You got to take your licks.
Yeah.
Be a man. Third, the prosecution of those who would defend themselves go hand in hand with the lack of prosecution, for the most part, of the rioters. This was the intended result of emboldening rioters. So those who defend themselves are the ones that are being scrutinized and criticized, and those who are rioting, it's righteous. They're allowed to be violent. They're allowed to be vulgar. They're allowed to be menacing because they are fitting the narrative. Number 4, finally, the MSNM and the left will mount a defamatory campaign against their designated enemies, in this case Rittenhouse, but it could be anyone else who meets their criteria. That will attempt to taint jury pools so badly that a lack of evidence to bolster the prosecution's case won't matter. This is especially true if the goal isn't necessarily conviction, although that's desired, because a hung jury will do for that purpose. The principle is that the process is the punishment, and the state will not relent in its pursuit of its quarry. Multiple trials if necessary in the case of a hung jury. And that's very important to see here because it almost seems like the prosecution in the case of Rittenhouse was throwing the case. Because it didn't matter if he was acquitted or he was found guilty. They already have the mob in front of the courthouse. They already have the scenario that has been seen in all cities all across the United States.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very interesting.
It is, and the misstatements and outright falsehoods that are relayed in the process are pretty shocking. Now, the latest antic by the mainstream media was the fact that a reporter from PMSNBC was given a ticket for running a red light as he was chasing the jury bus. The reporter was following the jury bus, and as the story unfolds, it appears that his bosses told him, chase the jury bus and see if you can get a picture of the jurors. Well, this ties right in with what Jose said about the defamatory campaign and the attempts to influence the jury pool. So that
Sure. I'm going to put you in. Let's see if he gets.
So that the case comes out the right way, so that you can scare the jurors, so that the jurors go into that jury room with the idea, wow, if we don't find this guy guilty, our town's going to be on fire, my house is going to be on fire, and I'm going to be in danger, et cetera, et cetera. I was watching the George Floyd case very closely because my suspicion is that when that case gets to an appellate court, they'll find reversible error in not doing a change of venue and trying to saying that the cops could get a fair trial in Minneapolis. That's a pretty tough one. Okay, we've got a caller named William here, calling from where, Jose?
Not sure. But
Honolulu, maybe, huh?
Sounds like 801.
Yeah. Okay, he wants to talk about Rittenhouse, and then I've got Dr. Tom Poole who wants to talk about Adrian Cruz. So I think I'll go with William stay with Rittenhouse, and then after that, no matter what, we'll go to Dr. Tom Poole and find out about Adrian Cruz. Okay, William, welcome to Tall Tales.
Hello, sir.
What can you tell me about Rittenhouse?
Well, a couple of things. Number one, there's a lot of claims that he left his home and went to Wisconsin with a weapon. That wasn't true. He was given the weapon there after putting out a fire that the rioters had set to defend himself because he was coming under attack. And this all came out. It's in details in the case. That's a big point that they were trying to make, which is why the weapons possession charge was dismissed against him, because he did not cross state lines with the weapon. Plus, once he was given the weapon when he was there, it was for self-defense, and it was a long rifle. And in the state of Wisconsin, you are allowed to possess a long rifle at his age.
Right.
A couple other factors are that his grandparents and his mom, or I'm sorry, it was his dad and his grandparents, they lived in Kenosha, Wisconsin. He's actually was in a cadet program for the police and the fire department. The reason he went to Kenosha was because he was in fear of his dad and his family's lives.
Well, also, William, he works in Kenosha. He's a lifeguard at his home, and so he was there. He didn't go specifically to this demonstration. He just stayed after work, is what he did.
Right.
In the process of not crossing a state line with a firearm.
Correct. And he actually started doing what he was in training to do as a fire cadet, which was to put fires out. While he was putting these fires out that these rioters were starting, he became under attack. They were attacking them, and a good Samaritan who was there with him said, "Here's an AR-15. Defend yourself."
Yeah.
And that's what it boils down to. And all of those individuals that unfortunately lost their lives and were injured during the altercation with Rittenhouse were trying to kill Rittenhouse. It's on video.
Yeah, we've pretty much covered this ground here on Tall Tales, William, that any neutral observer of what the trial showed say, why did you put this guy on trial in the first place? But of course, the caption of this matter here is the left versus Rittenhouse, and Jose pretty well laid out for you what the left is after here. He's obviously a bad person. Anybody with a rifle that looks like an AR-15 is just almost incorrigibly bad to start with. And then
there was some I'm sorry, go ahead.
Anyone who is not siding with the demonstrators, the rioters who are rioting for a righteous cause, is also bad. So he's being punished not for what he did, but for what he is. He's in my mind, having seen him on TV, having watched him and read about him, seems to me like he's a pretty nice kid, the kind of kid you'd like to have living next door.
Correct. There was some development today in the story with MSNBC. I don't know if you guys heard about that.
I just mentioned it. Yeah, chasing the jury bus. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, well that was pretty much all I was going to say. Was just I'm actually in Utah. I just moved from Guam. I spent a couple of years there working with the government, and left and came back here to Utah. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of people here in the mainland that are not happy with the way things are going with the administration or with the leftist media.
I've crisscrossed Utah several times. My wife went to college in Utah. We know Utah. I really like Utah. And one of the things I like about Utah is an awful lot of the people have their heads screwed on right.
Thank you.
Whereabouts in Utah are you?
Murray, in the suburbs of Salt Lake City.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, well, I've done a few laps around Temple Square myself. It's a great city, great state. Really glad you could call us, William.
Thank you. I really enjoy listening to your show. I actually first started listening to it when I was there on Guam and Tamuning a year or two ago.
Uh-huh. Well, once a tailgater, always a tailgater, right, William?
Amen to that, Bob.
Good talking to you. So long. Okay, so William from Salt Lake City.
Just an addendum to this conversation you had with William, and this is exactly what they don't want us to have, is to look at the facts of the matter. Look at this as a case separate from what is going on in the narrative that's being pushed. This is a case of a kid who was being pursued, and was it self-defense or not? That's the question it should be. Everyone is throwing their almost like projecting their mindsets, projecting themselves in this case as if that's what matters. And that's not what matters here.
And, of course, when you have the President of the United States come out before the trial, before anybody even charges are brought, saying, this kid's a white supremacist, where can you go from there?
It's already set in stone.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to go from there to España. We'll talk with Dr. Tom Poole.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tuman location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Hey, let's go to Tango Theaters and watch a movie.
No way, I'm broke. How am I gonna buy snacks?
They have a combo special for the whole month of November called the G's for Giving Combo Specials. You can choose from 2 combos for just $13.75. G Combo 1 with a drink, popcorn, and candy, or G Combo 2 with a drink, hot dog, and chips.
Wow, okay, that sounds good.
A portion of the proceeds will be donated to the UOG Endowment Foundations for scholarships and programs.
Cool, it'll be my treat. I'll buy 2 combos.
Visit Tango Theaters and grab yourself a G Combo special during the whole month of November.
Okay, so here we are. And let's see, I got Dr. Tom Poole on the line right here. Hola, amigo.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Judge Klitzkie. This won't take long. I just, yesterday during your conversation about our deputy director, of course, I work at the Department of Agriculture, I got a series of messages from our director, and she said that he definitely is not traveling with any sort of entourage, and that while our government is paying for the airfare and per diem, his hotel costs are being picked up by the Spanish. So, and it has nothing to do with the Cannabis Commission or any of that.
Well, I guess I'm so happy for him.
So I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
If that's okay.
Yeah, well, it's I can understand why you'd want to do that, but still, he's a deputy director of a department. What kind of activities does the Department of Agriculture have going on in Spain right now, Tom?
Well, none that I know of.
Yeah.
None that I know of. So I don't really think, as you say, I don't think this has anything to do with our department specifically. Yeah. So
yeah.
So these are other duties. As you said, he's representing the governor in this. So
yeah.
But I just wanted to put that in, and thanks for letting me get that out, Judge. I'm grateful.
Well, you have a season pass for Tall Tales. You can come in and you can sit in the box seats anytime you want to, Tom.
Okay, thank you, sir, very much.
Good talking to you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Bye.
So long. Dr. Tom Poole, veterinarian, the territorial veterinarian, works at the Department of Agriculture.
Friend of all dogs and cats.
Yeah. I wonder if he speaks Spanish. Probably not. Otherwise, he could have gone to Spain, right? Okay, next item on the card is Moylan getting the burn. And I applaud Senator Moylan for his efforts But he needs to go farther. And this is an old story. This is November 15. Senator James Moylan is asking for continued access to the government of Guam's AS-400 financial management system. The AS-400 is a computer system that the government, it's kind of like QuickBooks for governments.
Not HAL.
It's the system that the government uses to keep track of all of its money, all of its accounts, et cetera. And when you talk to the number crunchers, they are quick to reference, well, I've got to look that up in the AS-400. Or I can't tell you that. I don't have access to the AS-400. It's kind of like the AS-400 is some sort of witching stone or something like that. It's the source of all human knowledge about the government's budget.
How many steps above the TRS-80 is it?
I don't know, Jose. I know we tried to replace it one time with another system, and it fell apart. It cost us a lot of money. But the AS-400's been around for a long, long time. So going on with this article, notwithstanding any other provisions of law, rule, or regulation, Moylan said the Department of Administration shall provide senators of the 36th legislature and the Office of Finance and Budget with read-only access to accounting and budget modules of the AS-400 financial management system for all government agencies. However, Moylan says they're not giving it to him. And Moylan said the measure lapsed into law on September 11, 2021, and after 2 months, his office has yet to receive notice on how they would be able to access the AS-400. Quote, please advise on the timelines of which the 36th Guam legislature should be anticipating the read-only access to this system. As the author of the amendment which led to this inclusion, the objective was to promote greater transparency. I look forward to an immediate response, etc. Well, Vern wrote back and said, in order for you to have access to the AS-400, you have to send us a request, and then we get you in.
Denied.
Yeah. So I want to pick up on that, and I want to take it where I think it really should go. And I've talked about transparency before, and I've used the analogy that transparency is, if we're talking about a store and we're talking about transparency, what you can see in the show window of the store is an example of transparency. So if there's an advertisement that says silver machetes on sale, $20 a piece, come to Bob's department store, I would expect to go to Bob's department store and see those machetes in the store window. That would be transparency. Now, if the machetes are inside, that's not transparency. And if the machetes are inside behind a closed door and I got to find someone with the key and get him to unlock the door and let me in to take a look at the machetes, that's not transparency either. What we have with our sunshine law is a means to get our hands on the keys. It's not transparency. When you have to write to a government official and say, I demand to see this, that, and the other thing, public records, that's not transparency. If you can go into a computer that's open to everyone, that is transparency. So this is a great opportunity for transparency. I would like to see everyone having access to the AS-400. Read only, with the necessary security safeguards, et cetera, so people don't hack it. That's the only way you're going to get fiscal responsibility. Saying you have to let senators know about it is not going to be very effective. If the public, if the news media can have easy access to the AS-400, then you're going to get some action and you're going to get some real enforcement of proper spending. So, Jim, you're in the right church. You just got to look around a little bit more and get in the right pew on this one. The fact that you can get into the AS-400 doesn't make me feel anywhere near as good as I would feel if Jose and I could get into the AS400.
I have a question about this, though. According to the article, there is a law that says all senators have access, or they have this level of access.
Yeah.
And then it also further says, well, this one I'm reading from the Post, says that two senators, offices of the senators, have access already before this law. And that's Senator Joe San Augustine's office and Vice Speaker Tina Munoz Barnes' office, both who've stated they have access, but and stated that they had to sign something previously, or because their office has access. Why aren't all senators already pre-signed to have access? Why is there another step when the law clearly states they have this access?
Yeah, well, you have to humble yourself. You see, that's the burn for Jim Moylan. You can't just insist on something because you have a legal right to it. You have to go over to the Department of Administration. A clerk will come out, and Jim would tell the clerk what it was that he wants, and then the clerk would say, "Come in. You see this rug over here? Okay, ready, grovel." And after a significant amount of groveling, then they'd let him into the AS400.
Can I see your papers, please?
Yeah. So what I'm saying is that anybody ought to be able to have access, because it's our money. This is not, not some secret funds that belong to an individual. This is our money. And the more access we have to these accounts that show us what's going on with our money, the more responsibly it will be handled. So good start, Jim, but you need to go a little bit farther with it. All right, it's a good time to break for that big halftime show that we've all been looking forward to.
Is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
It'll be hours more before the House votes on the spending bill. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. The vote, which had been scheduled for late Thursday night, now delayed till mid-morning Friday, as House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy is still on the House floor talking it down.
House Republican Leader Kevin McCarthy began a floor speech a little after 8:30.
Let me be clear. Never in American history has so much been spent at one time.
And has not yielded the floor since, opposing a nearly $2 trillion social spending plan and arguing attention of Congress ought to lie elsewhere.
I want to go back to when China wasn't flying over Taiwan every day and threatening and rattling.
Throughout, Democrats have jeered in the chamber.
House will be in order.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is expected to make a closing case for Democrats before a vote on a key piece of President Biden's domestic agenda.
Fox's Jared Halpern at the Capitol reports that vote is now scheduled for 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, Eastern Time. House Democrat leadership disputing the assessment from the Congressional Budget Office that the bill would add hundreds of billions of dollars to the federal deficit. And while the debate continues, the president's poll numbers are still sliding. The latest Fox News poll suggesting that may not be a coincidence.
Joe Biden's been around a long time. Now 53% say his age is interfering with his job, including 28% of Democrats. And 46% say Biden's policies are too liberal. Right now, his big push is for the Build Back Better plan.
The cost of the Build Back Better bill in terms of adding to the deficit is zero.
But only 27% say that plan would help their family. 31% say it would hurt.
Fox's Peter Ducey. Convicted killer Julius Jones lives. His scheduled execution Thursday canceled after Oklahoma's Governor Kevin Stitt, on the recommendation of the parole board, commuted his death sentence. He'll serve life in prison instead for a murder he says he didn't commit. America is listening to Fox News.
Leah Dunca from Security Title here with a little information about trusts. A trust is a legal entity capable of owning property. It can protect property from issues such as lawsuits or divorce and can be used to distribute property and avoid probate. Many trusts start as revocable but become irrevocable when the initial trustees die. Work with your estate planning attorney to see if a trust is a good fit for your family property. Call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Always here to help you. This island is our home. Through the years we've been a friend to the neighbors we have known. Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Guests.
A third day of deliberations in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial failed to yield a verdict. Judge Bruce Schroeder booting MSNBC from the courthouse for the rest of the trial after a freelancer for the network was detained briefly Wednesday night, police say, while he was following the jury bus.
This is a very serious matter, and I don't know what the ultimate truth of it is, but absolutely it would go without much thinking that someone who is following the jury bus that's it's extremely serious matter.
Judge Schroeder also allowed the jury to take home and study his 36 pages of written instructions to them. The defense is rested in the Brunswick, Georgia trial of the three men accused of chasing down and shooting jogger Ahmaud Arbery to death last summer. Closing arguments are slated for Monday. President Biden's vaccine mandate halted temporarily by the federal appeals court. The White House still encouraging people to get the shot voluntarily.
We're continuing to implement vaccination programs, of course, across the country. We have been encouraged by some of the numbers we've seen in terms of the uptick of people who are eligible, who are getting their booster shots. About 30 million Americans have done that to date. Obviously, more than that are eligible. So we'd like to see more people getting booster shots.
Press Secretary Jen Psaki. In Florida, a new law is on the books, just signed by Governor DeSantis, preventing businesses from compelling their employees to get vaccinated unless they're offered a number of opt-outs, including for medical or religious reasons, existing natural immunity, or an agreement for regular testing. More than 28,000 Afghans have applied for temporary admission to the U.S. for humanitarian reasons since shortly before the Taliban recaptured the country. But only about 100 of them have been approved, according to federal officials. U.S. Immigration Services struggling to keep up with the surge in applicants. I'm Jack Kellogg. This is Fox News.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Half a day. Konnichiwa.
Patois. Ciao. Enter for a chance to win the 76 Circle K World Cuisine Giveaway. Be one of 3 lucky winners to win a passport of free food from around the world at over 15 different local restaurants. Just stop by any 76 Circle K, purchase $35 or more in fuel to get an entry form. Drive by today and taste the world with 76 Circle K's World Cuisine Giveaway. Visit 76circlekguam.com for more details. Some conditions apply. Circle K. Take it easy.
Afre, my name is Kiona Rivera, student at the University of Guam and recent recipient of the G is for Giving Scholarship. This holiday season, I'm encouraging our island community to support the G is for Giving campaign. Your generous contribution not only support programs at the university, but also helps students like me reach our academic goals. For more information on how you can help shape the future leaders of our island, call the UOG Endowment Foundation at 671-735-2957 or visit their website at give.uog.edu.
Guam Auto Spot has the best selection in Buick, GMC, Mitsubishi, and used cars like the 2021 Mitsubishi Mirage starting at $127 per paycheck, 0 down. Call 671-478-AUTO to take a test drive or get pre-approved online at guamautospot.com.
You know, Jose, that music is so inspiring. It's hard to beat. That big halftime show that we have every day. Well, I peeked at Facebook during the halftime show here, and Peter Santos, I'm going to repeat something that Peter Santos said because it's repeatable. With respect to my remarks about access to the AS400, public access to AS400, Pete Santos says it's like body cams for people authorized to spend government funds. Yeah, somebody's always watching. And then he goes on to say, I don't have the details, but I imagine you have to create a user account and password in order to get into the AS400. And that's what Moylan has failed to do. You know, you got to create a user account and a password. And then Peter Santos goes on to say, Moylan has failed to do. As usual, Jimmy ain't so bright. Well, that's not very nice. That sounds like the kind of thing I'd say. All right. So here we go. Back to the card. The next item on the card is, let's see, I covered Moylan versus the burn. Next is Igorolu and Dahilik versus ratepayers. So I have a letter to the editor from, look at my papers here. Yeah, this is, I think this is a letter to the editor from Mr. Dahilik. He said, when I was 19, I spoke out against the new fossil fuel power plant planned near my high school. I was told that nothing I say would change the outcome of the project because the plan was done and the contract was waiting to be signed. A few weeks later, the Power Authority was allowed to establish a portfolio goal of 100% renewable energy by 2045. All 15 senators sponsored the bill, including Senator Joe San Augustine. Language within Public Law 35-46 states that the amount of renewable capacity may be subject to engineering and economic analysis by Guam Power Authority, which suggests that we won't be certain of our public utilities achieving 100% renewable energy by the time I'm 45 in 2045. It's handy to be born You know, at the turn of the century, it's really easy to remember how old you are, right? It's a lot harder when you're born in 1938 to remember how old you are. Yeah. Part of the Guam Power Authority's renewable energy plan is the creation of a solar panel farm. And earlier this year, we witnessed how inferior planning, management, and construction can negatively impact our natural and valuable ecosystems. Litigation is still ongoing against KEPCO and Samsung. Late last year, a bipartisan measure, Bill 219, was introduced and removed from the session agenda, which would have allowed our public, charter, and collegiate institutions to serve as properties eligible for installation of solar panels to aid in attaining a lower cost for cleaner energy electricity production, and to provide strengthened legislation to purchase of leaseback renewable energy, which was also co-sponsored by San Augustine. But after masterful propaganda by the Power Authority, the bill never received a vote. We were told by the Power Authority that Bill 219 would have unintended consequences of increased rates for non-metered customers, including low-income, disadvantaged, and other households with no opportunity to be net metering customers. However, utility rates have continued to increase whether or not we place solar panels on top of our schools. It seems as if our utility rates are dictated by the fluctuations of global fossil fuel industry supply, and not by a handful of subject matter expert community members. How the legislature is quietly being asked for an exemption to build a new fossil fuel power plant near Jose Rios Middle School. It's integral to note that Guam Power Authority was denied a permit to construct this new fossil fuel power plant without the exemption being proposed by Bill 213, which is sponsored by San Augustine. We have many questions the Guam Power Authority and their contractors owe to the people of Guam: financial risks, public health risks, environmental risks, and how this will impact Public Law 35-46, which offers the Power Authority the privilege to lead us to 100% renewable energy. Time flies, and when I'm 45 in 2045, I want my children to know that I did all that I could to leave them a future they can thrive in. Well, the guy's a pretty good letter writer. I'll give him that. Of course, I'm part of the GPA power propaganda mechanism, because I always stick up for GPA on these net metering and renewable energy controversies, because the proponents of the renewable energy game usually grossly oversimplify. It's like, while it only takes 3 years to build a solar farm, if we started today, in 3 years it would be done. We could take all of our internal combustion machines, all of our machines that burn fossil fuels, and junk them, because we'd have renewable energy. It just doesn't work that way.
I wonder how many of these hybrid cars are more than, let's say, 8 years old on the road. Because I'm thinking not a lot of people can afford these batteries.
Yeah.
To replace the old ones.
Well, I read a story the other day about the batteries, and here's what I remember from the article. The batteries weigh 1,000 pounds. Yeah. It's not your little 12-volt battery, no. Right? And they're full of all kinds of hazardous materials, and they're very dangerous. They can explode. Yeah. It's possible for them to explode. And there's no easy way to dispose of a dead lithium battery that powers a hybrid. So there's a company, I think, in Nevada. There's only one company in the United States that does it, and that company's in Nevada. And a lot of car dealers that take the hybrids in trade put those hybrids on railroad cars and ship them to Nevada, as opposed to attempting to remove the battery from the car and shipping the battery to Nevada. So it's like Thomas Sowell, our Carl's old friend Thomas Sowell, always says, there are no solutions, there are only alternatives. Yeah. And if you ever have a chance to watch the movie called Planet of the People, which is sponsored by, what's his name, the super liberal Myers. What's his first name?
I only know it's Seth Meyers.
The guy that's always wearing the hat.
Yeah.
The movie producer.
Yeah, Bowling for Columbine. Mike Myers.
Mike Myers, yeah. So Mike Myers produced this movie, and he goes into all of the other side of this whole renewable energy thing, all of the rare earth metals that you need to build solar panels, and the life cycle of solar panels, and the fact that they're really hard to dispose of when they're no good anymore. The effects on wildlife of wind power, and all of these things have tremendous downsides that nobody wants to talk about. All of them, of course, require tremendous amounts of fossil fuel to create. So it's just a classic case of there's no such thing as a free lunch. I've got another letter here. This is from Esser Egarolu. But I notice I've got somebody here. No?
Well, the first caller was our Carl, but he just wanted to correct us and say that the filmmaker's name is Michael Moore, not Myers.
Yeah,
Moore.
Michael Moore.
From Michigan, I believe, too, right?
Yeah, Michael Moore is the guy who wrote, produced Roger and Me. He's
Which is actually pretty good.
Ultra lefty.
Yes, he is.
Yeah. So for him to make a movie like that is quite an undertaking. Now, Michael Moore is more of a comedian type. Yeah, well, it looks like I've got our Carl signing in right now. It's another Carl. No, it's another Joe. Okay. Okay, another Joe. I'm going to take you ahead of this next letter here. Good afternoon, another Joe.
So what you got here is the extreme left insisting on having their way, and it's they don't want to compromise with this green movement, and they could easily get a lot accomplished with compromise. I mean, you got, I don't know how many years consecutively where they have these forest fires, and they still don't want to have logging. It doesn't make sense if you have some kind of controlled limited logging where you can having an economy being stimulated, not waste all that resources, and it's going to get wasted with all these forest fires. And then afterward, you have after the dry season, you got the rain season, you got mudslides, and people get property damage, and some people are unfortunate victims. So there's a bunch of things that can be compromised on. It doesn't make sense. And with the power plant here on Guam, I don't understand what they can't compromise. I understand they don't want the kids to be victims of the emissions from a power plant, but there's no way to solve that.
Well, for one thing, if you've been following this along, the plant that they want to build is just a fraction of a percent as much a polluter as the plant that's there right now. So it is actually a way of lessening pollution. But go ahead, another Joe.
So I don't understand why they don't want to compromise. And we've got, if we can revisit so many issues. I am for a safe and clean environment. I like to have clean water to drink and food that's not contaminated. But I see that I think there's room for compromise. And if we just can't do it, we can, if we don't want something in our soil, we can try to find a way to ship it out. And I just don't know why they don't want to compromise. a lot of these issues.
Well, I'll give you my own take on it, and that's this: and being an environmental wacko is a religious undertaking. That you have to subscribe to all of the dogma, and the dogma is fossil fuels are bad. All fossil fuels are bad. We need to do we should never use fossil fuels even for a minute. Solar energy is good. Wind energy is good. Even biomass is good. So long as
do all the above.
So long as we're not burning any fossil fuels, we are then righteous. So because we have embarked on this career of righteousness, we have to shame people who are still sticking with fossil fuels, talking about compromise, talking about phasing out fossil fuels, phasing in renewables, et cetera, talking about the fact that the sun doesn't shine at night, et cetera. So what you have is a group that are so enchanted with their own dogma that they're perhaps not really capable of seeing any other way of looking at things, which is absolutely necessary for any kind of compromising. Carl?
Unless.
Another Joe. Yeah.
Unless there's another motive. Because the only thing that would seem to make them happy, if they have it all their way, is, well, hey, let's take it a step further. Just everyone stop driving. You have driverless cars, or everyone go in public transit. You never have any privately owned vehicles at all. So just driverless, and that ties into this the G5 and whatever else they have planned with the wireless technology and stuff, where everything's faster, everything's it just makes me wonder what other motives are there. And they've even been proven that, hey, look at the Texas deal, right? And they say, oh, no, we were still right because they're saying that, oh, no, you can't get sunlight in the winter, you can't get wind, but actually this is just a ploy. They're still bad. The oil, petroleum companies are still bad. And I'm looking at them at Vice News, I'm like, this doesn't make sense. They're still insisting that there's nothing to of value to having a fuel in wintertime. It just doesn't, if you go back and you look at what they say, right, it just seems that you scratch your head and like, why can't they just see what they just said? If they listen to what they've just said, it makes sense why you need to have fossil fuels. You need to have petroleum sometimes. And because if you value the lives of people in a very harsh winter, and the only way to get energy is to have the fossil fuels. But no, the cities had all the power. This is true. And people were dying in the suburbs or in the residential areas because the city buildings had to have all this power, and everyone else had blackouts or whatever, brownouts or whatever it is they have. And I'm just thinking, man, everyone is so polarized, everyone's so partisan. If you really care about lives being saved, you could find a way to have a compromise. It's just so frustrating to have people stay so partisan. And yet they claim that they care for people's lives. If you care for people's lives, then why don't you want to compromise? So anyway, I don't want to keep repeating it. I just, it's like you're revisiting the same story plot.
It's time to go to Wrigley Field anyhow.
Thanks for your time, Bob. Appreciate it.
Yeah, good talking to you, another Joe. So let's head for Wrigley Field. And coming out of Wrigley Field, I've got Frenchie and Carl waiting in their driverless cars.
Howdy, Chili's is serving y'all some Texas-sized family meal, because everything's bigger in Texas. Enjoy full racks of Chili's world-famous baby back ribs, margarita chicken, savory shrimp, beef fajita, smoked jalapeno sausages, mashed potatoes, and corn on the cob. Man, this meal's bigger than Bill's, but it ain't breaking the bank. Chili's has Texas-sized family meals for just $45 to feed your crew of 3 to 6 folks. For your youngins, just add $5 for a kid's meal. Chili's, more life and bigger meals happen here.
Fuel up today with the new $8 gasolina meal. 2 all-beef Nathan's hot dogs, a big bag of chips, regular size M&Ms, and a 16-ounce gasolina energy drink. The brand new drink in a black can that brings a burst of energy. Drive in now and fire up your day with the $8 gasolina meter. Promo is only available at your favorite Circle K Guam locations while supplies last. Circle K, take it easy.
Okay, here we are. Wrigley Field, the world's most beautiful ballpark, Chicago, the 7th inning stretch. And I noticed that Tom Mendiola here has chimed in on a very topical issue, cancel culture. Tom Mendiola says, I was accused of being a cancel culture advocate just because I canceled my dental appointment. Should never cancel a dental appointment. If I've said this before, I'll say it again. You got to be true to your teeth, Jose, or they'll be false to you. Yeah. Okay, so let's see. I've got a couple of folks in the green room here. I've got Frenchie and our Carl. So starting out with Frenchie and moving from Frenchie to our Carl. Good afternoon, Frenchie.
Good afternoon. Can you see me? I'm hiding in the ivies.
The ivy-covered walls at Wrigley Field.
Yeah, I'm in there. I'm watching.
Okay.
So anyway, I thought it was a very interesting phone call from Dr. Poole. Not for what he said, but for what he didn't say.
It's kind of like Sherlock Holmes and the Silver Blades.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not what the dog did; it's what the dog didn't do.
Exactly. It was interesting because it was not obviously Adelup is monitoring the show and what we say, and he called because his director told him a different story, which is not my idea of transparency. You know, if we're going to have transparency from Adelup, it would be Crystal Paco coming out and say, okay, so-and-so will be traveling to such and such place. The reason for the travel is X, and traveling in the party are Mr. and Mrs. X, Y, and Z, and the budget for the travel is so much money, and it's going to be paid by this department or this department. But that's not what we're getting. We're getting a press statement from Crystal because Troy and Candid News broke the news that we had an assistant director that was traveling to Europe while half of the island is out of a job. So it's very odd how this administration is working. It is not encouraging, and so I found that call, and you know, Dr. Poole is a nice enough guy, but he almost sounded uncomfortable calling. It's like he was told you need to call tall tales. So I thought that was funny. The other thing is when you had Senator Dueñas last week on a week ago today on the show from 5 to 6 to talk about the threat that China poses and some of the challenges that we have, and I call and ask very specific question to the senator. And again, it's not what he said, it's what he didn't say.
It's just like Sherlock Holmes and the Silver Blaze.
Again,
it isn't what the it isn't what the dog said, it's what the dog didn't say.
Exactly. So we you know, he demonstrated a good political aptitude at soft shoe dancing, which I thought Jim Moylan was good at. But apparently Senator Duenas was good also. We might have to do one of those soft shoe number for the Republicans on the island to show how good dancers they are. But still didn't address some of the issues that were raised. And it is not encouraging to see wishy-washy Republicans and how they're going to get back to power, because they are afraid to just address simple things. So it makes me wonder how they're going to do it when we are facing complex issues and issues where you need a little backbone to go. And then, we also have Republican senators that don't like their names to be mentioned. And so this was kind of disappointing.
There's a senator that doesn't want her name to be mentioned, Frenchie?
Oh, what did you say, her?
I mean, they
their
don't.
Name,
What is their name?
Yes. So I won't mention it because she doesn't like it.
So you won't mention Tello's name because she'll be offended, right?
Well, I'm afraid next time I see her, she might hit me with her purse.
It's a pretty expensive purse. It could be worse.
Yeah. I don't want to be coached, right? So, so that's my remarks on this, and it's kind of a, I've been looking. I have a good friend who is a very well-learned individual who sent me an email this morning about some of the hearings about going on at the Senate. And I think next week I'd like to talk about this a little bit because it's very complex. We're having people sent by the Biden administration to be nominated at key posts around the administration that are extremist lunatics that are very dangerous. And I can think the one that was an eco-terrorist that spiked trees in Idaho, that was confirmed. There was the guy that was supposed to run the ATF, but he was not confirmed because he was way too radical. But that was more the exception to the rule. So I think we need to look at that.
How about the lady that's nominated to be controller of the currency?
Yeah, well, that's the one my good friend sent me the mail about, and I think there is a lot of things to be said about that, but you have to say it in the proper environment so that people do understand the consequence of putting such a person at such a position, and that it is not happening in happenstance. It's a deliberate nomination to sabotage our whole economy, and that is going into a much wider picture that is of a fight that has been going on since at least Teddy Roosevelt fighting the initialization of the Federal Reserve and his subsequent departure from the Republican Party. It's very interesting. I think maybe you can put it on the card and then we can go over that. And I hope you and Jose have a good weekend despite being in suspension for a couple of days, okay?
Okay, thanks for calling, Frenchie. It's always good talking to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so our friend Frenchie. Now, our Carl has on some occasions ridden the Ferris wheel 3 times in the same show. He did himself better because he called 4 times in about 20 minutes and hung up every time.
He kept missing the ring. Oh, wait, that's a carousel.
The brass ring. Yeah. Okay, well, I got somebody in the green room. Oh wow, it's our Carl again. The most dangerous man in the boiler room. Tell us about fossil fuels, dangerous man.
Hey, Bob. Yeah, I watched that movie, Michael Moore movie, Planet of the People.
Yeah.
And it was really surprisingly good. He really untangled the huge, vast money-making scam that it is. Even he spotted, that these atrocious capitalists were taking advantage of this situation, and not through the free market, but through getting government subsidies, billions upon billions. I'm thinking specific. One example is Solyndra, the famous Solyndra debacle during Obama's term. Yeah, they spent over $500 million pumping up Solyndra, and it went down the tubes, and I'm sure many of the others did too. And it strikes me as kind of a, renewables only supply a tiny fraction of our power. I think I saw one estimate, it's like in the neighborhood of 2% or something. It's a tiny, tiny fraction. And that only survives because of vast amounts of money being pumped into this green energy stuff. And it just strikes me as a giant money-making scam. Destroy the fossil fuel industry and then siphon hundreds of billions of dollars to your cronies.
Carl, you're right. But the part that I really thought was interesting was the way that movie shined the light on the fact that this whole renewable energies thing creates much greater environmental problems than it solves.
Yeah, that's very true. I'm sorry for the noise in the background. Bob, are you there?
I'm here. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That is very true. That unfortunately, Michael Moore came to the conclusion in the end that human beings are like a virus on the face of the earth. Sorry, I'm moving around and.
What kind of dog is that, Carl?
I'm torturing my dog.
Okay.
But yeah, he unfortunately, in the end, he came to that conclusion that human beings are a virus on the face of the earth. But other than that, it was a very good documentary. I just wanted to add one other quick thing, and that is in Mark Levin's book, best-selling book. It sold over 1 million copies in just a few short weeks, American Marxism. One of the chapters addresses this issue of the I think he terms it climate fanaticism. Yeah, the climate change fanaticism, and he gets to the heart of what is happening, the key motivation. In one part of it, he says at the core of the mind-numbing, amalgamated, Marxist-centric or Marxist-like crusade is the degrowth movement. Mankind consumes and produces too much, and the blame resides with capitalism or America. And then he talks about the originators of this degrowth movement among the left and the Marxists. In their essay, What is Degrowth? From an activist slogan to a socialist movement, leading degrowthers Federico Di Maria, Francois Schneider, and then he goes on and he lists a bunch of these key promoters of this degrowth philosophy. But it's basically a movement to downsize capitalism. That's why they don't go against, they really have no interest in attacking the key polluters, which are China and India. They're completely uninterested in that. They're attacking, especially America, the chief offender. So it's not really about saving the environment. It's about destroying capitalism, as usual.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I just wanted to add that thought as far as what the motivation is behind this climate movement is, and that is the destruction of capitalism.
Well, I'm glad you took the time to do that, Carl, and I hope that whatever it is that's making all that noise in your house appreciates all your efforts.
I was scurrying around trying to find my glasses because I'm reading this stuff without glasses, and it's a little bit blurry. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find my glasses, but I was able to stumble through some of the reading of it because it's very important to understand what the core motivation of this movement is and why they don't go after China, which is the largest polluter on the planet, and India, number 2. They're completely uninterested in that. It's about destroying capitalism. Anyway, Bob, I'll just leave that thought with you, and thank you for allowing me to chime in again. I appreciate it.
You're always welcome, Carl. So I got a couple coming up here in the green room. I've got R. Keith and another Joe. And see, R. Keith wants to talk about green energy. And another Joe's already had a ride on the Ferris wheel, so I'm going to go to R. Keith first. And then we'll probably head for Churchill Downs and then another Joe. Good afternoon, R. Keith.
Good afternoon, Bob. I just want to follow up on what R. Carl very astutely pointed out, and from Mr. Levin's book, the agenda behind a lot of this green energy. I think a lot of the, what do we call it, the troops in the streets or whatever, an awful lot of them are just sort of naive. Let's go save the squirrels. But as with everything, follow the money. And there is something of a Marxist, Maoist push behind all this, as Carl indicated, how the focus always seems to be on the U.S. and the West. And if you look at the Paris Accords, China and India, the two biggest most populated nations, were not included. And 7 of the top 10 were not included. And if you keep going down the list, it's something like only 5 of the top 20 were included. And it's always, I guess, the capitalist nations, rather than if it's indeed a global problem, then we're all in this boat together. You don't point out if the boat's sinking, one rower who's the fault of it all. Something else to consider, though, and I think we may have hit upon this once before, particularly with this regime that is currently in D.C., it seems that almost all roads lead to China. And with regards to so much of this green energy, a lot of it requires some exotic materials, including rare earth elements. And one of the world's largest producer is, guess who? China. The U.S. has a couple mines, but the Biden administration actually shut down the permit for a very large one in Nevada. And some of the others are located in not so very pleasant parts of the world. So this leaves China holding the reins for all of the, China, Afghanistan, a few others, holding the bag of minerals for all these nice little green car batteries and the like. And that's something that I don't think gets enough airplay.
Right. Yeah, I think you're right on that one, Narkeith.
Just my 2 cents.
Well, your 2 cents, in any kind of foreign exchange market, your 2 cents would probably draw a premium of about 50%.
Got to factor in this inflation.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, you two have a very nice weekend.
Thank you very much, Keith. Good talking to you. Okay, let's head to Churchill Downs here for a few minutes, and then we'll check in with another Joe.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus tinactac, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
So here we are, Churchill Downs, Louisville, Kentucky. Surprised I don't see our Jack out here somewhere in the grandstand. You know, he oftentimes arrives in Kentucky just about this time of the day. But we do have another Joe, correct? Another Joe?
Yes, sir. Here.
Yeah, so what can you tell me, another Joe?
Well, earlier I kind of got stage fright and I forgot to mention it's not just carbon emissions that we need to worry about. There's other greenhouse gases, of which a huge contributor to the warming of the Earth, which initially started out saying, oh, it's global warming, but it's not. That was a mistake. For many years, the left kept saying, oh, it's global warming. It's more accurately, it's climate change is the issue. Is the change in weather patterns, which historically has occurred throughout history, throughout the centuries. It doesn't say that it's going to be permanent. You know, but anyway, I don't want to get too much off subject over climate change. Methane, Bob. Methane is a huge creator of it's a greenhouse gas that it helps to increase the temperature. Exactly, and so the question is, you know, and you see this on green documentaries that say, hey, you know what, it costs so much to raise cows and cattle, takes so much more water. People should just go vegetarian or vegan or, you know, something else. Absolutely. And so they're going and they make this man, I'm going to trouble for this because some of my relatives love this stuff, this artificial meat, what do they call it over at these burger places, the Impossible, you know, it's not made from cows, but it tastes like beef, right? But yeah, so they're implying, I think, we should just stop eating cows, and of course, you know,
anyone for Soylent Green. Exactly
right. I mean, who's in the menu, right? If you don't know, well, you know, to serve man, right? It's about. Mm-hmm. So the thing about it is, like the previous caller said, was it our Carl or no the other guy? I forget his name. They're saying the. What is it? Only the U.S. is bad. Everyone else was an offender, even bigger offenders. You know, nothing to be said. What are you going to do after? Let's say that the U.S. is, you know, everything goes the way of the left, right? The extreme far left. Then who's next? It's going to be China and Russia, right? And so there's going to be definite opposition, right, to forcing, you know, the world really think they're going to be able to force China to stop using carbon fossil fuels. I seriously doubt it. And so as far as India goes, right, a big part of their culture is was a part of their religion. They worship cows. So are you going to make them stop having cows, which part of their religion? You're going to make them stop using. How are you going to make them stop cremating their dead loved ones? You know, you have an alternative for that. Oh wait, that would be, was it natural? Was it firewood. Oh, I don't know if there's an alternative, maybe natural gas. I don't know what, some kind of fossil fuel possibly. So there's a fair balance. This level is what I'm looking for. A level playing field, Bob. That's what we're asking for. A level playing field, and on which the U.S. will be very competitive. And in that competitive free market, everyone wins. And there's so many alternatives that just shows how much confidence I have in the free market. Because anyone who feels left behind, you got the private sector with nonprofits and charities to try to make up for people who are left behind. But anyway, methane, Bob, is one of the gases. And it also ties into this idea of we need to have more public transit, more driverless cars, electric, everything electric. So anyway, I just wanted to add that in, and I'll just thank you, and I'll just keep listening now.
Okay, well, thanks for calling back another, Joe. We always appreciate your call, so good talking to you. Okay, so I got about 9 more minutes here till Jose and I go into limbo again. I've got this letter here from Cameron Egarola, very similar to Kyle DeHelig's letter. She says a 1993 law prohibits fossil fuel burning generators from being built within 1,500 feet of a school. Was created by previous leaders who wanted to protect children from exposure to that harmful chemicals that come from power plants. I'll bet that's why they wanted to do it.
It's better if it's injected into their arms.
Yeah. It's a desperate decision on GPA's part to try and convince the community and our senators to amend this bill and allow a power plant to be built. Our senators are public servants, and it's their duty to protect the health, welfare, and environment of our community. According to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's website, burning fossil fuels at power plants creates emissions that can lead to respiratory and cardiovascular problems, and exposure to mercury can increase the possibility of health issues ranging from cancer to immune system damage. I've lost part of this letter here somehow in the duplication process, but just stopping there. Much of this, if you burn fossil fuels, gases are released, and these gases can be harmful. So the answer then is just to never burn any fossil fuels at all. Now, by fossil fuels, we're talking about coal, oil, natural gas. Those are fossil fuels. If it hadn't been for our ability to bring fossil fuels out of the ground and burn them, there would never have been an industrial revolution. And if there had never been an industrial revolution, the only source of environmental gas that we'd have to worry about now would be methane gas emitted from cows, because we'd all be living out in the country. We'd all be living on farms. So there has to be a analytic approach to the whole idea of burning oil, gas, and coal. And that is that if there are other ways of doing the things that need to be done that don't cost us anything, and by cost I don't mean a dollar sign, I mean implicit and explicit costs, well, then perhaps we should go that direction. But I don't see that. I see the Egarolas here. Well, the Environmental Protection Agency said that burning fossil fuels is going to cause, what did she say? Respiratory and cardiovascular problems. So if there is a company that burns fossil fuels in Omaha, Nebraska, and I live in Scottsbluff, Nebraska, how much of a threat is that to me? The whole idea here, as I mentioned earlier, is to demonize coal, oil, and natural gas, and try to convince the public that under no circumstances should those materials ever be burned to generate electricity. So we don't need it. We don't need to do that. We've got the sun and the wind. And the whole idea of practicality never enters into the thought process at all. If we decided that we wanted to devote everything that we have, all of our resources, to going to sun and wind, solar and wind power tomorrow, how long would it take us? I'm betting 25 years. And how much fossil fuel will we have to burn in the process of doing it? So it's an emotional argument that has a lot of currency with people who are high on the gullibility scale. I don't count myself as a part of that gang, so I'm not buying into this at all. And then I have an article here that Ivan Matic wrote the other day. It kind of gets into the planet of the people idea. And this is what he said. People who have no clue how to develop something or not develop something are preaching how to do it. For example, to make solar panel takes tons and tons of D2, or ultra-clean diesel fuel, to extract silica sand for glass, bauxite, aluminum ore, to make aluminum frames, plastic, copper core to make wires, etc., not to mention when they are destroyed by typhoons or at the end of a usable life cycle, where are we to dispose of them? They become industrial waste. Where will we dispose of them? Where will we dispose of storage batteries on our island? We can't even figure that one out yet. And all and everything we consume on our island comes by ship or aircraft. They're powered by bunker fuel, D2 or JP5. All products on these machines were made involving carbon fuel consumption. So should the legislature make laws to say only green ships and planes can deliver to Guam? Only using green consumables? Tires are not green. That would mean no cars on the road, no planes to go somewhere, etc. Do politicians have plans on how to reduce sulfuric acid in the atmosphere from the more than 140 active volcanoes on Earth, some of which are close to us? I doubt it. As I was born on the opposite side of the world in a different system, I have learned that when politicians are for or against something, something must be hiding behind. So staunch refusal objections of a virus-delayed GPA power plant makes my ears stand up, and I get a feeling of millions of ants crawling up and down my spine. Pretty graphic description. Is something we don't know behind this? Yeah, well, Ivan Matic, and I'll finish this up some other time, but he kind of puts a little different light on this whole let's go green today idea. That's it for today. I'm going to go home and gloat a little bit about winning the PICA Award and crawl into a hole and pull the hole in after me until 1600 on Monday when we'll be back on Tall Tales. See you then. Let's go, Brandon.
FM and 104.3 HD3.
And he's still talking. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy continuing to speak on the House floor at this hour, effectively delaying a vote on the president's nearly $2 trillion social spending bill.
The House Majority Leader, Steny Hoyer, has indicated that there will not be votes overnight in the House of Representatives on the social spending bill. They were going to vote sometime last night. They were going to vote sometime early this morning. Now they have called that off. So McCarthy can go as long as he wants, but the House is set to reconvene at at 8 o'clock in the morning unless they're still going.
Fox's Chad Pergram reports from the Capitol. That's a possibility. McCarthy has been speaking for nearly 6.5 hours.
Why am I still speaking? Because I want America to know what's in the bill before it gets passed. Because I trust you enough. If you stayed and heard what's in the bill, you wouldn't vote for it.
As House Minority Leader McCarthy can speak as long as he chooses. A new Fox News poll finds nearly half of the people who responded don't approve of the bill.
46% oppose the social spending plan, 44% support it. But more Americans believe the social spending plan will hurt their families and the economy than believe it will help. On top of that, nearly 6 in 10 voters believe they will end up paying for the social spending plan, and it will not be paid for by taxes on the wealthy or through cost savings.
Fox's Jessica Rosenthal, the Congressional Budget Office, reported Thursday the bill will increase the federal deficit by $367 billion over the next 10 years. Jurors in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial return Friday morning for a 4th day of deliberations, the judge allowing them to take home his 36 pages of printed instructions, which she admits are confusing. Closing arguments now scheduled for Monday in the trial of 3 men accused of killing Ahmaud Arbery as he jogged unarmed through their neighborhood in Brunswick, Georgia last summer. The men said they thought he'd been stealing things. America is listening to Fox News.
From the Fox News Podcasts Network. Stay on top of the latest news and information from Fox News. Listen and download the Fox News Hourly Update on your time. The trending stories you need anytime you want it. Listen and download now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com. From the Fox News Podcasts Network.
What are the most important issues facing Americans today? Every Monday, join me, Brett Baer, Chief Political Anchor and Executive Editor of Special Report, and my rotating all-star panel of experts as we discuss the policies, practices, and solutions to the biggest and most important issues of the day. You can hear new episodes every Monday. Subscribe now